Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this week. My name is Tanya, and I'm the Marketing Manager over here at Struxoft Solutions. Just for those of you who are new with us today, our Star Solution MWF or Metalwood Framer is our automated Revit wall, floor, ceiling, and truss framing software for light gauge steel and also for wood modeling. Today, our technician Aparna will be walking you through bill of materials schedules and shared parameters available within MWF. So in this webinar, you'll learn about shared parameters, where to find MWF shared parameters, how to work with MWF shared parameters, and also how to populate your bill of materials with accurate cut lengths and weights. So just before we get going, I'd like to remind everyone that at the end of the webinar, we'll be taking a couple of live questions. So in order to be selected, please press the raise hand button on the dashboard. Just please also make sure that your mic is working correctly. If you'd prefer, you can also ask questions throughout the webinar in the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard. We'll make sure to get back to you by email within 24 hours for those questions. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to hand off to Aparna now.
Hi everyone, my name is Aparna, and I would just like to let you know you guys can reach us at this email if you had any questions. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about BOM schedules and shared parameters. I know I get questions about this all the time through support, so let's cover some topics about it. So what are shared parameters? If you have worked, or well, technically, what are parameters, right? So parameters kind of store information, like if I want to tell you that this is a track, I will store information into it. Everything from like the name of the family to the type of the family to the category is a parameter. So there's a few types of parameters within Revit. There are certain things called, I think it's, there's certain things called global parameters. So this is a project-based parameter. You can use it for calculated values. You can put them in schedules, and they're just available for you within this specific project. Then there is project parameters. Again, it is very project-specific. You can create new parameters that can store information, and these parameters have to belong to a category. So that's what project parameters are. They're great for like, hey, in this project we need to specify the gauge or KSI for everything, and we need to specify the weight for every item in the project. So these parameters can be used for that. And then our main topic today is shared parameters. So this type of parameter is usually stored, if I click on it, it's stored inside a text file, right? So I'll just, oops. Let me just grab that for you. Open. So it's stored in a text file like this. So what it has is it has a GUID, and that's basically a unique ID. And then it has a little bit of information. So it has information like the name of the parameter, the type of it. So it could be text, length, angle, mass, etc., etc. And this basically tells Revit what kinds of units to assign to it, or what's the format of the values of that parameter, right? And then you can assign it to a group. So a group would basically specify, is it in this folder or is it in that folder? That's basically what the group would specify. And these parameters are, shared parameters are the most commonly used because they can be transferable from project to project. So if I build a family and I use these parameters within that family, and I move that family from, say, project 1 to project 2, the data will remain the same, or it will grab the data from the same location, because what Revit uses is the GUID. So you folks might have actually noticed sometimes when you're working in a project, you have multiple reported lengths and you're like, which one's the correct one? I don't know, right? So the GUID is what specifies if it's the correct one or not. So if your GUID is different for both of those reported length parameters, it will show them as two different parameters within your Revit project. So you need to basically find this file and grab the reported length parameter from this file, like it is over here, right? So you need to grab that reported length parameter with that GUID. This is a little technical, but that's basically what shared parameters are. You can share them for multiple projects. And you can assign a shared parameter file to your project. Oops. And to do that, you'll basically go to Manage, Shared Parameters, and you can just go hit Browse, and I'll just show you where our parameters are located. So if you click on MWF, let me just go here. If you click on MWF Pro over here, it will take you to the families folder, and that has our MWF.params file. And if you would like to get to it from somewhere else, I'll show you that as well. So this is where it is typically located. I'll usually just hit OK and OK. And now we have our shared parameter files loaded into our project. And then project parameters. This tells you every parameter that has been either loaded into the project or created for the project. The way you would know if something is a shared parameter or a project parameter, you would hit this wonderful modify button, right? So over here you can see that the shared parameter is highlighted, and that basically means that there was a file that we got this parameter from. So there's not much modification we can do for this. And then you could also, so in this screen, these are basically the parameter properties. You can specify a bunch of things. You can specify the name of the parameter, whether it's a type or an instance. Now, I'll explain this in a quick second, but let's go through these options here. So you can specify, let me create a new one actually, say add. So I can add either or. So if I wanted to add a project parameter, I can just start typing in all this information, selecting the categories I need it to belong to. So typically for MWF, the categories would be walls. If you're adding information to windows and doors, you could select windows and doors too, but usually typically it's walls, framing, connection, columns, and if we go up top here, roofs, generic models, and floors and doors. If you're doing windows and door items, those would be the few categories you would select. So if I hide unchecked categories, these are what you need for MWF parameters if you're creating any. So now we can decide what to either name it if it's a project parameter, or if you want to, if you select shared parameter, it will basically bring in the parameter and it will apply it to your selected categories. So basically the point of selecting categories is every time you click on a wall, this parameter should show up. Now, where does it show up, right? Like, is it a type parameter or an instance parameter? So let's talk about the two differences between these two options. So type parameter means if I have, for example, if I have a 2x6 column, right? The size of it is not variable for everywhere the 2x6 column is used. So basically the size, which would mean like the W by H or B by D, the base and the depth dimensions don't change. So those have to be type parameters. So I'll create a base, I'll create a base parameter and I'll set it as a type because I want that to be the same across multiple instances of that object, right? So the thing that could be variable would be maybe the type of wood or the treatment of the wood. So well, I'm more familiar with steel, so I'll go give you a steel example. So maybe you need galvanized steel in certain areas, or you might want to use a different material for another area of the project, right? Or you just want to apply different materials, like you want to apply different finishes to the object. So what you could do is you could set that up as an instance, because the 2x6 doesn't change. Maybe there's a finish around it that changes. Maybe it'll be gyp, maybe it will be it'll be a yellow painted gyp, or it might be a white painted gyp. You could set that parameter, like the finish could be set up as an instance parameter, and you could choose that per instance. So I'll be using the same 2x6 type everywhere in the project, but the finish around it, I don't want it to be exactly the same everywhere in the project. So there's two options. You can either create a new type for that, which would be like if you have a white paint option, a yellow paint option, a red paint option, or a blue paint option. I know those are ridiculous colors for a building, but yeah, like if you have all of these wonderful options, you don't want to create so many types of families and load your project up with so many different types. Instead, a lot of clients like to use the instance parameter for this. So what I would do is I would call it finish, and I would make that an instance parameter. And now let's set up a finish parameter, just as an example, right? So your finish parameter probably has to either be a text or it has to be a material, right? If you want it to be colored on plans, and if you want it to be colored a certain way or visible in a certain way in 3D, you'll probably set it up as a material. But if you're just grabbing the data for a schedule, just so folks know that column with this ID has this kind of a finish on it, I would probably just use text for that. You can still grab the data from material. You just have to be very mindful of how you name your materials. So if you are comfortable using materials in Revit, go for it. You can grab that data from there. And then there's quite a few different options or types of parameters in here as well. So there's text, just text. And then there is, the main ones we use are text, length, and mass sometimes, but we also use the structural discipline, and we use the mass over here, or we use the weight field over here. Okay, so weight per unit length, you've probably seen our weight family is, our weight parameter that's already attached to our families. That is usually a weight per unit length type of parameter. So this is just basic overview of parameters. I hope I'm not confusing anyone or, it's a little technical, sorry. But basically this is, oh yes, and then there's groups. So where do you want to place it? So you see how there's the graphics group, there is identity data, there's phasing. You can choose where do you want to place it. Do you want to place it in phasing? Probably not. Do you want to place it in like identity data? You would select identity data here. It's up to you where you want to place it. Usually if it's a dimension, I'll place it under dimensions. If it is something more, like if it's identity data, then I'll place it there. It just depends on what you're creating. There's so many possibilities with parameters. You can store so much information in them. And then there's another option for parameters, which is related to groups. So if you're using model groups in your project, this would be very important to set as an instance, especially if you, we have a few clients that have exactly the same framing everywhere, except one area, like maybe like on level 1, their windows need to be heavily framed, whereas on level 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't need to be that crazy. So they'll set their basic framing, or within their template, they'll set their framing as level 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's more typical. And then on level 1, they want to just tag that opening as something else. Well, if you have the data opening marker set up as a variable by group instance, then you can technically do that. Like now, even though the same group is being used everywhere, same model group, same floor plan, everything is being used for multiple floors from 1 to 5, my parameter can specify that, nope, that data is wrong. Like for that specific parameter, I want it to be instance-based. So that would mean that you would have to go to every floor and assign that marker to this family. But if you've assigned rule sets in your properties or panel properties already, then you don't have to do this stuff, except for that one specific window. You'll have to go and add a marker to it, and it will let you, because it is set as the value can be different per group instance. Right. So let's get started with the fun stuff, which is basically MWF, right? So over here, you can see I have a beautiful looking shop drawing. And over here, now I have my framing cut list. So everything seems great. I have my label. This label is not, I've not used the distribution label or like a schedule label. I've basically used whatever the BIM-SF label is over here. So if it says S1, it will show me S1. So what that ends up doing is, you see the count is just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 everywhere, because the BIM-SF label is always going to be different for every member in your panel, right? So you will end up seeing everything, even if you don't need to. So now there's a different type of label you could use as well, which is called the BIM-SF schedule label, right? So in order for you to have access to the schedule label, you need to have, I think I already have it. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, schedule labels right there. So in order for you to get the schedule label, like MWF will automatically load it in. So by basically going to your shop drawings manager over here, and within miscellaneous, we have a distribution setting. So if you run a distribution strategy for all of your panels or before creating shop drawings, you can technically use the schedule label. It will also load, MWF automatically loads it in the first time you use it, and you can use it in tags and other fun things, right? So since I've run this, my panels have already been, already have data within that parameter. So I could technically say, no, I don't want my schedule to have just the BIM-SF label. I wanted to have the schedule label. Let me show you the difference. Okay. So if I go to the schedule, you can technically fix this in your master schedule and rerun the shops, but I'll just show you here so you can see the change being change happening on the spot. So over here, right now I have BIM-SF label loaded in. Only thing I have to do is go here, grab the BIM-SF schedule label. If you do not find the schedule label, you've probably not run distribution. But if you do want to find it from our MWF parameter file, you just go to new parameter here. You'll go to shared parameters. You select a shared parameter. Since we set that shared parameter file in the manage folder, it will show up here properly. And now we just go find the BIM-SF schedule label, which should be right there. If you hit OK, yep, all looks good and everything looks great. You can add that element to the categories that we discussed. In this case, since it's just for the structural element, I'll just add it to connections, framing, and columns. That's it. Those are the 3 categories. I'll set it as an instance because in this panel, it could be different than the next panel. Or if the height is different, then I needed to assign a different value. So it has to be set up as an instance parameter. It's not typical per type, right? And then you could choose values vary by group instance and just hit OK. And that's another way for you to add it in. But you can see it right here that it basically grabbed that parameter from there and dropped it in here. So it would have been the same thing as me just dragging and dropping that. And the reason this happened is because the GUID from that shared parameter is the same for the parameter that was in that list and for the parameter that I tried to add in. Okay, so that is there. So now I have this added in, but I kind of want it located over there, right? So I'll bring this down. Now I have that over here. I can go to formatting and formatting, and I can just say this BIMSF label. I can copy that title. I can hide this field because I don't want to see it anymore, but I want to see this one, and I'll replace this with that title. This is just replacing the name of the header. It's not actually replacing the parameter itself. But that's how you would do that. And now we'll hit OK. Yeah, we'll hit OK. And you'll see that, okay, we now have all of these values are different than what we had before, right? So let's just set the horizontal alignment to center so it looks the same as how it was. But you can see that the count is still 1. I don't want the count to be 1. So what we are going to do is go to sorting and grouping over here. And we are going to, over here, how it says, we forgot to change this, right? We forgot to change the BIMSF label to schedule label. So now what it's going to do is it will filter or sort by any variable schedule label. So let's hit OK. And there you go. Now my list is much shorter. If I go to the sheets, look at how nice and clean that looks, right? And our counts are being updated. But you can see that the length is not per item. So over here, it's we don't have 9 pieces of 161 feet, right? We have 9 pieces of maybe 18-ish, I would say, feet. I forgot the number right there. But we don't want this to happen like this. We want to tell them that there's 9 counts of this length. So how do we fix that issue, right? So the reason this happens, it's basically from Revit. If I click on reported length, if you hit calculate totals, it's basically going to multiply the reported length by that count and give you the total value. So if I say no calculation, it now gives me, oh, it's 17 feet. I'm sorry, I was off by a little bit. But basically, it gives you it now gives you that there's 9 pieces of 17 feet of pieces of 17 feet in length. So how do I get the total length? Like, I still want to see the total at the bottom, or is there another way we can do it? Revit doesn't allow us to do it in any other way except for we can add an extra column, right? So how do I add an extra column for this? So there's this thing called a calculated parameter. So if I add a calculated parameter, I can call it total length, L-E-N-G-T-H. And all I have to do, honestly, is set this to length. Pick reported length because, well, technically the totals were calculating correctly, right? All I want to do is create another duplicate column of reported length and move that up. And basically go to formatting, go to here and say calculate totals. Now you have the totals for all of them right there, and you'll have your total length at the bottom here. So that's the way you would be able to. That's the way you would be able to set up your total or show your total lengths. Same thing. The same thing doesn't go for weight though, right? You can see the weight is still 2.16. Actually, no. Let me just quickly go here. All right. Let's quickly check what the weight is doing. So I'm going to say no calculation. Yeah, so the weight is also being multiplied by the count, and it's giving you a value here. So if you want to show the weight per linear foot, great. If you want to show the weight per linear foot for the total length, great. You can use the totals. But if you want to show the total weight of that element or that item without it being per linear foot, Well, you need to create a new parameter. So let's see what that parameter is going to be called. So we're going to call it total weight. Whoops. English. W-E-I-G-H-T. All right, we're going to call it total weight, and we're going to say we're probably going to use structural, and we will use weight as the type. Let's hope Revit doesn't, you know, freak out when we try to do this. So it's going to say reported length times weight. And ta-da! Okay, that worked. Sometimes Revit gives you an error saying, nope, it's not the same unit. Figure it out again. So usually the weights type is usually pretty good, but you have to go to the structural tab to get that. So now we have the total weight listed, and then what we could do here, well, we don't really need a calculation. Let's check out what that looks like. So we have the total weights for one item. So if you actually wanted the total weight for like the total length, you would basically go to formatting, total weight, and go, oops, calculate totals. There you go. It gives you the weight for the total length. Okay. So now it's your choice if you want to keep all these columns, or do you want to just keep like the total weight and the length column, or total weight and total length column. It's up to you. You have options. The world is your oyster, right? So let's center that. And this is basically how you would work with schedules. So now let's go to another question I get asked the most. I spoiled my sheet, sorry. There you go. Okay. So another question I get asked a lot is, hey, I have some members in my panel that I've added custom families for, but I don't see them in my schedule. Well, the first thing I will do is, let's go check the filters. What have you set up in your filters? So over here, it's asking you if the BIM container exists. Since this is a multi-category schedule, that's a very good filter to have, right? You don't want to show generator or mechanical equipment or random walls when you're just trying to get the cut list. So BIM container, very good parameter to have. Then it says the reported length has a value. But if you have multiple reported length parameters in your project, which reported length has the right value, right? So that would be something you would need to check. So I would double check the reported length and see what that shows for the family that is not showing up. So let's go take a look. In my case, I have this family here. It's a C channel family and it's not showing up. Like, why is it not showing up? Because you can see here, it's not there at all. So let's see how to make it show up. So I'll go edit family. And I'll basically go to the parameters and see what it has assigned. So it does have a reported length parameter, okay? So that's already a good sign, but it's grayed out. So I don't know if I can change much for it. Oops. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if I can change much for it, but let's click on this. So it seems like it was just created as a family parameter and it cannot appear in schedules or tabs. So we can't use it in the schedule. So how will this item show up? And probably the reported length GUID is not the same because it's not a shared parameter, right? So let's go click on shared parameter and select. So since we already had it loaded in for this Revit session, we already had the shared parameter file loaded in. What we're going to do is now we're going to select the reported length parameter from here. Reported length and hit OK. And everything else stays the same. I don't want to change anything. The family is great the way it is. And now I will load it into the project. You have the option to save these changes, but I usually don't save them until I know I'm 100% good with the change, right? So I'll say no for now. All right, there you go. It shows up because we had that filter stating that you have to use this specific reported length with this specific GUID in order for you to show up in the schedule. And there you have it. We have that piece showing in the schedule now. And then another question I get asked a lot, which is related a little bit, not much to parameters, but just the way certain things are set up in MWF. So I might lose some of this work, but it's okay. Let's quickly show you that. So if I go, where is it? Actually, I'll just show you here. So I'm supposed to actually have a clip that's supposed to be placed right here, but it's not being placed. Why is it not being placed, right? So let's go take a look at that. So if I go here, I will, I know that my clip settings are good. I've already checked my clip settings and all of them look good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check the family. So first I'll just show you my clip settings just so you can, oops, right there, and then horizontals. And I'll click on the horizontal, I'll set clip settings. So it says that it's looking for a C stud and it's attaching it hard side to hard side. So hard side to hard side, which is exactly what I want, right? Like those are the settings you would like. So now let's go take a look at the families, why it's not applying it. This family, if I take a look, go edit. Oh, sorry, not here. In the yellow folder. Over here, you can see that it says C profile with lips. That looks good, like MWF recognizes that. That's pretty decent. But over here, if I click on my horizontal, if I edit family, no, again, yellow folder, guys, yellow folder. Over here, it says C channel with slope flange. So MWF doesn't recognize that specific shape yet. So what we have to do is change it from C channel sloped flange to C profile with lips, or just C profile, technically. We can just change it to C profile. Let's do that. And now let's load it into the project over an existing version. And what we're going to do is regenerate the panel so we can see if those clips come in. There you go, the clips came in. MWF was looking for a C profile attached to a C profile. So that's why it wasn't reading this properly. All right, so just make sure that your horizontals are set to C profiles or horizontal, or if it's a rectangular profile, then set it up to rectangular, just so that your panel reads it and places the clips as you need to. All right, and as you can tell, since I regenerated my panel, my shop drawing is, my dimensions disappeared, because the way MWF does this is it basically deletes the panel and recreates it, so you kind of lose the dimensions and the text and all that fun stuff. So I'll just show you how to tag them quickly, but the dimensions, obviously you'll have to do them manually, but so really quick, tag, and hit OK. But I forgot to show you one more thing, actually. So over here, the distribution didn't get completed because, well, we recreated the panel. So, let's try to do this. Let's run distribution for the panel. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them up in the chat. Oh, you're open somewhere else, aren't you? There you go. Okay. No? Okay. Let's just run the shop again. That might be easier. So let's go to copy one, I think. Nope, it's the roof. So over here, what panel am I doing? It's 509. It's right there. So I can just rerun the shops for this. Obviously, the schedule I've set up, since I didn't make the changes in the master framing schedule, it will not remain. But the schedule changes are really quick and easy, or I could just make those changes to the framing. But let's quickly create a shop for this. All right, let's go take a look at that shop. Okay, so distribution is completed. Now let's go quickly change the schedule, like how we did. I'll just do it in a little bit of a rush and make it happen. Go here, copy, go here. This is not a hidden field. This needs to be a hidden field. Go to sorting and grouping, and we're going to make the schedule label, and we're going to say totals only. We're going to go to reported length and not calculate totals. And we are going to go to weight and not calculate totals. Instead, we're going to add total length. And I will change this to length, and I will change this to reported length. Like a quick overview, right? And then I'll add another one, and I'll call it, oops, total weight, UHHT, and total weight would be structural, and it will be set to weight. And I will use reported length, and I'll multiply it by the weight field that we have here, or weight parameter that we have here, and hit OK. And that's our weight there. And we'll go here and we'll say calculate totals. We'll go here, calculate totals. And that should, oops, also left, no, center. This will be center. This will be center. And that should be good. All right. And then these two guys just need to be bold. No. And so same thing with you, make you bold. So yeah, there you go. You set this up in your master schedule and you'll have your total length and your total weights. And when you go to your shop, this is how it shows up. But you see that my label here doesn't match my label here. So now I have to change my tags just so I can relate them to this value, right? So I'll click on this. I've used a regular structural column tag and I'll hit edit family. You can save this as your own. You can call it MWF tags. It's up to you. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit label. And you can see that I don't have the BIMSF schedule label here. So I'm going to create a I'm going to load in the new parameter and I'll say select it from here. And over here, I can't really create a family parameter in this case over here. So I'm just going to, because it's a tag, it needs to read data from somewhere. So I'm just going to grab our schedule label. And again, it's relating to the same file. We'll hit OK, hit OK. I'll push that in and push this out. And we have our BIMSF schedule as our tag now. And I'll just load it in. You could save it if you'd like. I'm just going to hit OK and say no. Overwrites, and there you go. We have that saved up over here with the updated column tags. But you see over here, it still says HDD. So now we need to go fix our framing tag. So here, edit label, we can go to BIMSF's, load in BIMSF schedule label. There, and load that in. And we'll take this one out and again, load it into the project. Okay, say no. already existing. And there you go. You have your tags set up, and then you just need to do a little bit of, you know. And for the clips, you would just have to create a connection tag, sorry. And basically the different categories require different tags, right? So for the connection clips, you might want to use the CCRC value instead of the schedule label. It's up to you, right? You have a lot of options in this case. So yeah, you just create your tag based on what you need to show, and that's it. And that concludes our webinar. Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Aparna. So as she just mentioned, if there are any questions, now would be the time we're going to open the floor to you guys. I'd just like to remind everyone that if you'd like to pose a question live, please raise your hand now by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel. Just also please make sure that your audio is working correctly. And just while we wait for any potential questions to come through, just like to share that the recording of the presentation will be sent through tomorrow. You can always find it as well through social media later today, though. As always, please feel free to share this recording with any colleagues. And if you'd like to set up a one-on-one demonstration, or if you have any follow-up questions, we highly encourage you to reach out to our team. Our contact details for our sales team will be provided along with the recording. All right, I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds to see if there's any questions that come through. All right. Oh, it looks like we have a question. Sorry, just bear with me 1 second. All right. Juan, I'm just going to go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I have one question. It's just a small question because, you know, you have your own shared parameters folder, right?
Correct.
But I also have mine for like my base architectural projects, the ones I use before framing. You know, I build my walls, my floors. I give some shared parameters to my walls, to my floors, to my windows, to my doors. So sometimes I connect my shared parameters with MWF shared parameters to create schedules.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
it's just one specific question. Is it better to have one full shared parameter file or to have two separate ones with the ones I use for the base model and then just leave your parameters as they are in their own file? What would you recommend?
I usually recommend not changing anything from our parameter file because we might have some new tools that we've added, so those require some new parameters. So what I usually, or I typically recommend is, you know how, you see how there's groups in here, group 1, group 2?
Yeah.
I would just add another GROUP, and I would call it 3, and I would call it, in your company's shared parameter file, I would call it MWF.PARAMS. The text looks funny, but that's MWF params. And what I would do is basically grab everything from here.
And just place them in my file inside the group, right?
Yeah, paste them in your file, and then just all you would have to do is so right now it says data category and then group. The first number you see, you change that to 3, so it saves it in that group. So when you open up that file, it will show you the parameters that have been placed in that specific group, which would be all the parameters that we have here. So all you would have to change is this number to be 3. I'll just do these 3 for now, and I'll save the file. And when I load it in here, when I go to manage, shared parameters, I have that third folder created, and all those parameters will show up in there.
All right, perfect.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds to see if there's any other hands raised. Alrighty then, so that it seems like that's a wrap for today. For any questions that have been submitted through the chat that haven't been answered yet, we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible, usually within 24 hours by email. All right, we'll now be ending the webinar. Just want to say a big thank you to Aparna and also thank you to everyone who registered and also attended. Have a great day.